Welcome everyone to our candidates forum for the primaries from the Burke County Chamber of Commerce. This is something new for us. We typically only do candidate forums for the general election, so we hope to see you back here at the end of September, and we'll do this again. We felt like it was important since a few of our races will be determined in the primaries to do this for our community tonight. So we're excited to be here. In case you don't know me, I'm Tanya Stevenson, and I get the wonderful honor of serving as your Burke County Chamber of Commerce president. It is an honor to serve the business community, and this is one way we do that, is to make sure that people are educated when they go to the polls to vote. I'd like to introduce just a few people before we get started. Our chairman of the board is with us, Dalton Walters. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our chairman of our governmental affairs is Susan Burley, who you'll hear more from in a little bit. She's going to moderate for us tonight. Thank you, Susan, for all you've done and all your hard work putting this together. I want to thank Kelly Messenheimer and Jenna Cole, who's going to serve as our timekeepers tonight to keep everybody on time and on schedule and try to get you all out here by midnight. Is that good? So, just to let you know, in case you talk to anyone or have friends that you hear that said they would have liked to have been here and couldn't, this will be aired on Compass Cable within the next couple of days, and they'll air it several times throughout the next couple of weeks. It will also be on the Chamber of Commerce website and on our YouTube channel, so you can check it out there. Tell all your friends and family that they can check it out there. In the interest of time, I've asked all the candidates to be sitting up front. Are there any candidates that are not down here? If you would, please make your way down to the front. That's way when we change it out, we'll have it go by a little bit quicker. I want to say thank you so much to Western Piedmont Community College. Dr. Joel Welch is with us tonight. Thank you, Dr. Welch, for hosting us. Tim Pittman with WPCC. I tell you what, he makes my job easy, and I really appreciate that so much. Stacy Scholler, who's really great to work with to make sure everything is, all the details are worked out. Thank you again, Dr. Welch, for your hospitality. And I don't know about y'all, but we couldn't ask for a more beautiful location, so excited to be here. Now I'd like to introduce to you Susan Burley. She is the Vice President of Student Services, or Student Success and Support Services here at Western Piedmont Community College, and serves as our Chairman of Governmental Affairs for the Burke County Chamber of Commerce. So let's give Susan a welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for participating in this evening's forum. I'd like to welcome you to Leventon Auditorium on our campus here at Western Piedmont Community College. And do want to start off with a couple of thanks, one being to Compass Cable and Greg Branch for recording our forum, and also thank you again to Tim Pittman for helping us with our technology needs tonight. So our forum tonight will be broken up into 4 parts. Please hold your applause until all candidates have presented in each group. This will help us stay on time and allow for everyone to be heard. The format for the forum will be as follows. First, each candidate will be given an opportunity to make a 2-minute opening statement. In the interest of fairness, I will be rotating the question order to give all candidates a chance to answer first. Second, the candidates will be asked questions that they have not seen before this evening. If a candidate does not have a challenger present, they will just be giving an opening statement. There will be no questions. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question as a question is asked, and each candidate will respond to each question. For the audience, these questions will be projected on the screen behind the candidates. After all questions have been asked, the candidates will, with opposition present, will be given an opportunity to give a 2-minute closing statement. We have timekeepers sitting up front who will help keep the candidates on time. They will be giving candidates a 30-second warning, showing candidates a sign when to stop. In the interest of time, I will cut candidates off from speaking after their time is up. And again, a word to our audience members, we respectfully request that you remain quiet throughout the forum this evening. Please do not applaud, cheer, or otherwise distract from the candidates' remarks or throughout the process. There will be several opportunities throughout the evening for us to collectively applaud the candidates and express our appreciation to them for participating. First on stage, we had planned for the City of Hickory Mayor, Did that candidate show up this evening? Al Hoover, City of Hickory candidate? Okay, so then we will instead begin with the candidate for the City of Hickory Alderman, Ward 5. Next, we will be talking to candidates for the Board of Commissioners, followed by candidates for Burke County Clerk of Superior Court, and we'll end with the Burke County Sheriff's race. So now it's my pleasure to recognize our first candidate for the City of Hickory Alderman for Ward 5, Chris Simmons. So once Mr. Simmons has a seat and gets settled, we will open the floor to you.
Ready?
Okay, we're ready then. Please
Okay,
take the
well,
floor.
the opening act, here we go. Well, it's lovely to be here with you in Burke County. A lot of my people are from here, from eastern Burke County, and I salute Morganton and Burke County especially for what you guys have done with the School of Science and Math, with working with a number of developments that have made Morganton a great city to live in. I think the City of Hickory has a lot to learn from you. In the 3 minutes I've got, I'm going to talk about Hickory and also talk about the region. I want to start with a question, and I really want you to answer this. It's not rhetorical. According to the 2020 census, which of these are the largest? Which one of these is the largest? The Hickory, Lenore, Morganton metro area, the City of Orlando, the City of Cincinnati, the City of Pittsburgh, the City of St. Louis, the City of Buffalo, the City of Richmond, Birmingham, Alabama, St. Paul, or Salt Lake City. Which one's the biggest? The Hickory, Lenore, Morganton metro, 366,000 people. Why do I emphasize that? When you think of these cities, you think of the things they do. And one of the biggest issues for me is the fact that we're not acting as a region, and we need to. We have power when we act as a region. And one of the things that has been an issue with this is the City of Hickory. Hickory hasn't always been the best neighbor. It has not often embraced the region surrounding it and the way that it did in previous generations. Many of y'all who grew up around here know that when the textile and furniture industries were running at full bore from the 1930s and up until the 1970s, Hickory used to send out vans into Burke, Cleveland, Caldwell, all the counties just to bring people into work. It was the city was humming along so much. We have lost the power of functioning as a region. And that's one thing I want to emphasize, is to build relationships. And if nothing else comes out of this evening, I would really love to be able to get to know people here in Morganton who are interested in partnering with people at Hickory. I got 1 minute left. Okay, all right, well, let me hurry. All right, the other things I want to talk about here briefly are, Hickory has a legacy of public-private partnerships. All of Hickory's greatest projects, from the Salt Block to the Horsford Bridge, the Crawdad Stadiums, have all been private-public partnerships. That's something I want to stress in the future. I want to stress the development of all of Hickory. Two things I also want to just mention to you are, our region is in the bottom 5% of educational attainment and in the bottom 14% of median income, and that's a barrier to development here. So I urge us to function more as a regional entity, to focus on development, good development, guiding and guarding development, as opposed to letting people swoop in here and build lots of high-density housing. It's bad for our region. So I welcome the opportunity to continue the conversation with many of you. There's a lot more to say, but as you can imagine, 3 minutes is a time. And I see a stop sign.
Thank you, candidate Simmons. Next up, I welcome to the floor candidates for Burke County Board of Commissioners, Andy Burns, Leslie Deerfield, Tom Johnson, and Phil Smith. If you will please find your seat by your name, please. Okay, and we will begin with 2-minute opening statements from each of our candidates. The first candidate up will be candidate Randy Burns. Randy, the floor is yours when you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Susan. And thank you, Western Piedmont Community College, for allowing us to use the facility tonight. It's always a great honor to be here. My name is Randy Burns. I'm your candidate for the Republican ticket for Burke County Commissioner. A little bit of background. I've served 8 years as a member of the Burke County Board of Education. I was a member elected to chair that board for the last 6 consecutive years. So I have a pretty good working knowledge, I would say intimate working knowledge of many of the things that the county commission faces day in and day out. And I would appreciate your vote to be able to use that knowledge, the relationships that I've built with local, state, and federal partners over the last several years. I'm really gratified in the last 2 years to be able to work directly for the presidents of 2 of the community colleges in our region in the Aligning Education Efforts movement. Several of the things that I was charged with, we broke ground on a new trades building over here on this campus this past Thursday. That was one of the projects that I was able to conceive and get a myriad of help to develop that. Also, we have a heavy equipment training simulation program here that I conceived of the rest of 3 of the community college presidents in our region. There's just so much to accomplish and so much to do, and I just want to keep working for you. And I appreciate it. I won't use all my time, but I do thank you for your consideration, and I would appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Candidate Burns. Next up, Candidate Leslie Durfield, the floor is yours.
My name is Leslie Harefield. I'm going to try to lean into this. I tend to be notoriously soft-spoken. I am a lifelong, almost resident of Burke County, except for the years that I went away to graduate school and undergraduate school and worked for LabCorp down in Burlington, North Carolina, doing DNA technology. My background is a professional student for a while before moving back here to be a part-time caregiver for my parents, as well as try to start a business and do what I can to help the community. What I have done mostly with community service is work as a volunteer, or not volunteer, as a member of the poll workers at the elections. You may have seen me when you come in to vote. Over the past several years, I worked early voting as well as regular general elections. This time I'm going to be on the other side of the ballot, so I will not be able to look at the polls for obvious reasons. My interest in helping Burke County is that we have students who go away to college and don't always come back. And I would like to see Burke County become the sort of place that when your kids go off to college, they have a reason to come back. Other than entertainment, they also would like to have opportunities. I also want to consider opportunities for the students who don't go off to college, because all work has honor and all professions are honorable, and they should be given the due attention that they deserve as well as citizens of Burke County. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Durfield. Next up is Candidate Tom Johnson. The floor is yours.
Yes, my name is Tom Johnson. It's an honor to be here tonight and to be able to speak to you. I've been in Burke County for 25 years. I've raised 2 sons here. My wife works in the school system. I have served as the chairman of the Burke County Board of Commissioners for 4 years. And during that time, I learned a great deal about the community. It was only a couple of years after I had gotten here that I went on the board. Learned a lot about the community. We were able to correct a fund balance when we took over from the Democrats at that point, took the majority, from 4% up to 14%. The fund balance is the county's reserve monies that we have available. We did that lowering taxes. We didn't cut any people out of the workforce. We improved work environment and conditions. We were able to sell the lake, get the state to buy the $20 million out, the $20 million state park we have now, get the 220 acre county park out there, and that took a lot of effort by then Wayne, Eppley, Maynard, and myself to get that done. I'm excited to come back and try and to serve again. I think we have an issue coming up. We have a reevaluation coming up. We're looking at double-digit inflation right now, and I really want to focus on the tax situation that's coming after that reevaluation and the increase and the effect that's going to have on people working and just struggling to buy eggs and milk. At a minimum, I think we need to have that increase after reevaluation at revenue neutral, but I think personally I'm going to be working to lower it a little bit below revenue neutral, just because we have one of the highest tax rates of any community in our population. population density in the state.
Thank you. And finally, we have candidate Phil Smith for a 2-minute opening statement. The floor is yours.
I'd like to thank the college for hosting this tonight and all the people that are involved in it. I'm Phil Smith. I'm a graduate of Texas A&M University, grew up in George Hildebrand community, and somewhat in Valdez. My mother and father were divorced. One lived in one community and one the other, so I consider myself about half of a Valdez Tiger. But I retired with 30 years service in the military, U.S. Army, and North Carolina Army National Guard. Also retired 30 years in the Burke County Public Schools. Worked in the western end and the eastern end, from Table Rock back down to George Hildebrand and East Burke High School. So I know the people of this county. My first ancestor came here about 1750 and buried down there on Miller Bridge Road, right off from the bridge out through there to go on towards Hildebrand on the left, out towards the river there. I'm married to the former Kenny McFalls in Chesterfield. I've got 2 sons, Andrew and Garrett. They're both grown. I'm a member of the VFW post here in Morganton, Table Rock Post, the member of the American Legion in Valdez, Post 234, and also a member of Post 43, the Disabled American Veterans here in Morganton. I'm proud to be a member of each one of those. I want to be a commissioner because I believe it's important to elect people that have the same values as you do and share the same values and morals that you have in your community. I believe I can make a difference. I will bring a fresh set of experiences and job outlook to this position, having worked in all sections of the county. And I think one of the goals we have to do here is we have to make sure we're electing conservative Republicans that act like Republicans. I think our tax rate is way too high. And when they come out and start reassessing, I know about 3 weeks ago they were in Hildebrand on Center Street already.
Thank you, Candidate Smith.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move into our series of questions, and for this session, we'll rotate who begins. So if the candidates would like to take their first envelope to open up the first question, our assistance with technology is going to change the screen for us so that everyone in the audience can see the question. But want to make sure that the candidates have it right in front of them. After all the candidates have the question opened and have a moment to look at it, we'll begin this stage of the process. So first up for this round will be candidate Leslie Harefield. You have 1 minute to answer the question, what are the biggest budget issues facing our county? So candidate Harefield, when you're ready, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I believe we have a budget issue in the fact that we are probably one of the higher taxed counties in the area. It's important to provide services and the employees that are needed to look after the citizens of Burke County, but it's also important to remember always where the revenue that pays for these items comes from, and that's you, the Burke County citizen. And it's important to be very cautious in spending so that we can make sure that we get a good return on the investment that we put our money into. We don't have the means right now to just throw away money on projects, but at the same time, we should not veto a project if there's other opportunities in addition to tax revenues such as grants or funding that comes from the drug settlement on the lawsuit. I think one of our bigger issues is healthcare and the health situation going on with the drug trafficking and the drug deaths that have been related to Burke County. We need to look after our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Harefield. Next up, candidate Johnson, 1 minute to respond to the question, what are the biggest budget issues facing our county?
Right now, we have a fairly rich fund balance, in my opinion, and fund balance is important to have. It is our rainy day fund, but when the fund balance is way over the state median requirement, then one wonders either taxes are too high or how that money is being spent. So that's a concern of mine, and as I mentioned earlier, this assessment coming up and the impact that that's going to have on working people, single mothers trying to work. very concerned about that, and that comes back to, oh, I thought you were telling me to stop. Sorry. That comes back to our budget in a sense that there is a way to operate effectively the county government without overtaxing. There are projects that we have to look at in the future, such as land development for business.
Thank you, Candidate Johnson. Next up, Candidate Smith. What are the biggest budget issues facing our county?
I think the biggest issue facing Burke County right now is the old jail. We're talking about $18 million coming in for improving the old jail, turning it into a drug rehab center. I have a lot of questions about that. And when we do that, they're going to want the whole facility, so then we're going to have to turn around and go to a new sheriff's department that we don't need. And I think we need to keep things the way they are, keep the old jail. If we already got the new jail, let's keep the old jail, put juveniles and females in that one. When we get a sheriff in there that'll really crack down on drugs and start arresting some of these folks and get them put in jail, we can keep the old one for females and juveniles, keep the new one for the male population. And the questions I have about the old jail is who's going to own it if it becomes a rehab center? Who's going to pay for the rehab center and how much? Who will run the rehab center? How many employees and who pays? Where does the sheriff go? Where will reformed rehabbers go? Families will move here to be with them. They'll probably stay with them when they get out. And why they will sell the private company?
Thank
Can I
you.
ask a question? Are you holding up 30 seconds, 1 minute, right? You're starting at 1 minute, you're going to 30 seconds? Okay, just.
Everyone has 1 minute to respond, and the sign will be shown at 30 seconds.
I got you. I'm just watching.
All right, and for this final question in this round, we'll go to Candidate Burns. 1 minute. What are the biggest budget issues facing our county?
Okay, there's several issues facing our county. One is the condition of our Health and Human Services Department. We've really got to look and do a deep dive and evaluate what our needs are there, whether that be to remodel that building, expand that building. I know with the passage of laws in the state over the past several years, and having been the chairman of the Board of Education and the fact that the school system shares that facility, I was front and center for a lot of those conversations. And I can tell you, I watched that parking lot fill up. I know there was one law, and it doesn't come to mind directly, but it required that they had 20 staff to meet the requirements of that law. And that's one of our most significant challenges, is making sure that we figure out how to take care of those who need us the most. And that has to be a safe environment. And those folks who need those services have to feel like that they're valued. And big number one budget issue, I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges we're facing.
Thank you, Candidate Burns. We'll move on to our second question. So while candidates would like to take their second envelope and open it for the question, and we've changed the question on the slide so everyone in the audience can see the question. The question will be, if new resources were available, would one area of county services most needs additional resources to encourage economic development? And we will be rotating who starts this round. And once all the candidates have finished reading the question for themselves, we will begin. Okay, so for this round, we will begin with candidate Tom Johnson. Candidate Johnson, the floor is yours for 1 minute.
One of the big areas I see in the future, looking out 5, 10, 15 years, is we're right now sitting here out of land for development. We need to look hard at, with some of the monies that we have now, with a regional partnership that was mentioned earlier, we need to look at how we can set aside or acquire some land for future companies coming in and use the Science Center, the help of the Math and Science Center, and I'd like to see the Trade Center developed further, where we're looking around within a 150-mile radius at what businesses we can be tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers here, like Boeing in the Spartanburg metro area. What can we do? What can we attract to bring in here and train the people coming out of the high schools in the trade center, how can we further take that trade center up to the next level and look at right away at land that we need to have set aside?
Thank you, Candidate Johnson. Next up is Candidate Smith. If new resources were available, what one area of county services most needs additional resources to encourage economic development?
Well, I'm going to go the other route on the economic development. I think there's several things we need to increase resources with, and the main one is building a new human resources center. If we're going to do any building around here, we need to take care of our county employees in those 3 or 4 areas over there, Burke County Schools, the Health Department, Social Services. That place is it's miserable. It's very outdated, nothing works in it. I'd like to see a trade school for Burke County, and not like we just saw in the paper today or yesterday. And I want to see one that comes under the umbrella of the Burke County Public Schools, where kids go to school there like the other kids get to do and get a 2-year degree from Western Piedmont. Instead of that, they get a technical degree. They're housed there 9 through 12. I'd like to see an increase in school nurses. I think with COVID and all that, that's a big area that we need to improve on. And I would like to see a huge increase in school resource officers. Schools are not getting safer, they're getting more dangerous, and we need to look into all those areas.
Thank you, Candidate Smith. Next up, 1 minute for Candidate Burns. If new resources were available, what one area of county services most needs additional resources to encourage economic development?
Well, for this question, I am going to focus on economic development since I talked about some of the inter-county needs that we have. Water and sewer infrastructure is always big. I mean, we can buy land and we can get parcels of property, but if we can't provide the services that business and industry needs to come in and be able to utilize that property, we have a industrial park up off of Kathy Road that's set there for probably 15 years, and this year it's finally getting water now. So there's a lot of really good things that are happening in this county right now, and a lot of really sound investments that have been made. We need to continue making those investments. The one thing that we can do to turn things around is to grow our population. The last several years we've had an out-migration of people. So in terms of economic development, we've got to keep people here. We've got to make this a place they want to live, work, play, and worship, and stay here.
Thank you, Candidate Burns. Finally, Candidate Harefield, if new resources were available, what one area of county services most needs additional resources to encourage economic development?
Thank you. All of these answers are very good, but one thing that's also very important, and I'm going to fall back on my degree in geography, is access. It's wonderful to have new properties and new water supply. We also need to increase our infrastructure in internet so that the citizens have access to communications. But roads are going to be important too. If we bring back new population, they're going to want to have places to drive without having to wait 15 minutes at a light to get through the intersection. Another thing is we can maybe help develop the airport a little more so that we can attract more larger industry, because a lot of those folks who run those places like to come in by airplane. And I think we should increase our access to different parts of the lands available rather than necessarily look for new lands. We can maybe get better access to the land we already have. I do not want to see this county overrun like I saw in Greensboro. We have beautiful, wonderful resources, scenery, and I don't want to see that get turned into an urban.
Thank you, Candidate Harefield. Okay, and so we'll move on to our third and final question. If all candidates would like to open their third envelope, change the question up here on the slide for the audience to see. Our third and final question will be, how will you address issues in our county such as mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and homelessness? And for this round, we will begin with Candidate Smith. Candidate Smith, the floor is yours.
I'm going to kind of combine all those into one. Homelessness is a symptom of a larger condition, like drug abuse, mental illness, poverty, and some of it just plain laziness. I mean, you got some people that don't want to work. I do know that 0.2% of all homeless people that are in America, and that's the population, and 35% of those are veterans. So that concerns me, that we got 35% of all homeless people are veterans, but the way you would address that is you've got to start to deal with the homeless problem. I don't see Burke County doing anything to address the homeless problem. I was at El Paso the other night having dinner with my wife. We looked down through there in the valley where the creek rolls down. Man, it looked like Iraq tent city down through there. I've never seen it like, but you're going to have to address the mental illness issues, the drug abuse and all that, and I think strong law enforcement and I'm sorry.
Thank you, candidate Smith. Next up will be candidate Burns. How would you address issues in our county such as mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and homelessness?
I think I'll echo, I think what Phil was trying to say. We've got to build strong families in our county, and that family structure is important. That's where your support comes from. That's where you learn. I was talking to someone before we came in here, and we were talking about how work ethic and how do you get that. I mean, that begins at home, and you're trained to do that up until you're around 5 years old. It's what's modeled for you. But to address these issues, and I do agree that they are all symptoms of a bigger problem, but it leads me back to having strong families. But I think we need to invest in and work with our sheriff's department to make sure that we're giving them the resources that they need to adequately deal with it. And at the same time, providing the resources necessary for prevention. We don't want to just catch them and put them in jail, but at the same time, we want to make sure that there's opportunity there for them. One of the early conversations about this potentially new drug treatment facility, we engaged with them early on with the college. There's going to hopefully be opportunities for them.
Thank you, candidate Burns.
Move back.
Thank you. Next up, candidate Harefield. How would you address issues in our county such as mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and homelessness?
I believe the latter two are certainly a symptom of the first. Many of the homeless are out on their own. They have some health issues that they will not keep up with their prescribed medicines because they don't like the side effects. So they turn to self-medication with other options, and that's not always a good idea either. Part of the problem, I think, too, is just a sense of belonging and hope, and it's hard to feel comfortable and not want to stay away from substances if you don't feel like you have opportunity. And so I think by increasing opportunity, but also by teaching the students and not letting them get involved with the drugs and the issues that may be a problem in the first place, again, preemptive is good because it's ditching on saves time. We want to help the children not feel like they need to turn to drugs as an alternative, and rather than have an opportunity for them to do something productive and feel good about themselves.
Thank you, candidate Harefield. And last for this question will be candidate Johnson. How would you address issues in our county such as mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and homelessness?
20 years ago, we had a regional, small, each county had a mental health element in it. I was on the board there. That's gone away to a bigger, more regional approach. I would like to see that come back. So it's more county focused. It's easier for us to get our hands on it, find out what's going on. As far as a drug rehab center, there's 4 levels to a rehab center, with the 4th level being the most expensive, and basically doctors and staffing and in-care facility, to the first being less. We're going to have to identify if that's the direction that the people want to go, how we handle that, because the expense of that long term is something that's going to force a tax burden back on people. So that needs to be carefully thought out. But none of this will work without a stiff and tough law enforcement piece to it, where we're identifying these drugs coming in. I'd also like to see an element to, if we have a rehab center.
Thank you, candidate Johnson. Appreciate your response. We will conclude this panel with 2-minute closing statements, beginning with candidate Burns.
Okay, first of all, thank you for all of you guys for being so attentive. There's a lot of things that have been talked about. I followed the progress because, again, I was in the early conversations when the discussions started to take place about this long-term drug treatment facility. Understanding that it's still in its very, very early stages. I mean, the county commission, I think, so far the only action they've taken is to approved an RFQ to go out for requests for qualifications. They received those. And I think they did actually hire an architectural firm to kind of explore this, but there's also they're looking at outside agencies and partners to look at who would operate and run the facility. I want our taxes to be low, just like everybody else does. But I want to say to you tonight, don't get lost when people say tax rate. The tax rate is simply a reflection of your property value. The number we need to look at is the tax levy per capita, or the tax burden per person. Right now, Burke County is one of the lowest in western North Carolina. It rates 26 out of 100 in the state. So we're teetering on the edge. It does show that we have the second highest tax rate, I think someone said, in western North Carolina. But if you gotta look at the property values to understand what that means. And we're in pretty good shape. I don't want it to go up any. As a matter of fact, I want to work and try to find and discover ways to bring that down. But the area of focus for me is going to be on that levy per taxpayer, that burden on the taxpayer. Right now it's at $511 per citizen that lives in Burke County. Avery County is $1,200 and some odd dollars per citizen. Ours is $556, and Dallas like $566. We're in good shape there. If you look at western North Carolina in that respect, we're near the bottom.
Thank you, Candidate Burns. Next up will be Candidate Harefield, a 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you for again having us here tonight. I hope that we can at least give you some idea of the areas we have in common, as well as the areas we may have a little bit of difference of opinion or approach, not necessarily opinion. And I believe Burke County has a lot of opportunity ahead of us. We have great people. We have great natural resources, scenery. Tourism can be an option that doesn't necessarily require some of the larger infrastructure projects other than access. And we also have the opportunity to consider where we'd like to go in the future. We don't necessarily want to become a large city, but we may want to keep some of our rural character and stay true to the nature of Burke County over the years, and not try to change who we are too much, especially the good parts. So I would like to see us focus on that, but I also like to see us on keeping our students engaged and hopeful for their future. All students, not just the ones who are going off to college, but the ones who stay here too, and anyone who wants to leave their work in the trade. Thank you. I believe that Burke County has a great future, and I'd like to be a part of it, and I would appreciate your vote if you said something tonight that makes you feel inspired to vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Harefield. Candidate Johnson, 2-minute closing statement.
Yeah, since 1 minute is a little bit crazy to try to answer some of these complex questions, I'm going to just go back and hit on the drug rehab. What I was saying is there needs to be a law enforcement piece to that, and we need to work with the law enforcement community to find out what that is. We need to work with the mental health professionals in the county to find out what they need. I believe that mental health element needs to be pushed back down to the county level, and right now it's a Hickory, Burke County facility, which is good. I'm sure we did that years ago for a resource reason, but now we have a different set of issues. So this is a complex problem. It can't be answered by building a rehab center in an old jail and hoping it all goes away. It's a community approach to it. It's going to have to take some analytical thought, keeping in mind the burden on the people of what those expenses are going to be 5, 10, 15 years from now when the $18 million settlement goes away. If you spend 4 of that, 5 of that now to build a building, and it costs $1 million to $2 million to maintain it every year, you can do the math there. It's not going to last very long, and that burden's then going to shift back. So I'm going to bounce around to these right now, but I can't emphasize enough, the land element, and identifying land, setting up, 20 years ago, we had a water program in the county where we set aside grant money and county money, and we went to citizens and met with them, and if a house needed water in an area, the citizens would petition, and each household paid I think it was $1,500, or it was adjusted if you couldn't meet that. And we ran water lines all over this county. So it has to be, you have to think and
Thank
do
you,
things.
Candidate Johnson. And we'll close out with a 2-minute closing statement from Candidate Smith.
I'd like to make a couple comments about our county slogan, motto, all about advancing. Usually when somebody says that in government, you better hold on to your pocketbook, and they usually means your tax packet's going to be going up there. But I won't ask you to raise your hands about what one of the candidates said there about your average taxpayer paying $511 in taxes. Ooh, I'd like for mine to be that, man. That'd be very nice, but I'd like to know who's got a property tax rate like that. But the average cost of living in our country has gone up $385 per month since January 2021. So most people would say that they don't feel like they're being really loved right now. My good friend Lynn Webb over here was in the Dollar General not long ago. There's a lady in there. She was with her daughter trying to figure out what they could buy for supper that they could afford, and she came across a box of pancake mix and said, "Let's get this. We can eat about 10 or 11 meals on this." I think property owners in Burke County, we're going to have to lower the property tax rate. Whatever that takes, we need some relief. Our property taxes are going to have to go down. We're going to have to get a well-trained workforce in this county. We're going to have to educate our children for that, and we need to have job creation. That's the three main things, or four main things, counting property taxes, I'd like to look at. And I hope I can get your vote. The early voting will start, I believe it's this Thursday, and I hope you'll get out there and vote for me, Phil Smith, County Commissioner. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all candidates who participated in the panel tonight, and I welcome the audience to join me in a round of applause. Next up, we will be speaking with our candidates for Burke County Clerk of Superior Court. So, Carpenter and Aaron Dunworth would like to begin making their way up to the panel. And it looks like our candidates are about settled in their seats, so if everyone would like to come back together again. We will begin with each of our candidates giving a 2-minute opening statement. And the first opening statement will be from candidate Crystal Carpenter. The floor is yours.
Thank you for everyone coming out tonight to let us be heard. In October of 1984, at the age of 18, I registered as a Democrat. And sorry, not a Democrat. Please forgive me, I knew I'd say that. As a Republican, please forgive me. Sorry. As a Republican, I have never changed it. I have never changed that. When I first went to work at the clerk's office in 2006, I didn't have a clue how important this office is. As clerks, we are the record keeper. We take in the paperwork, we organize it into files, we take it up to court, we record what happens in court. So if you've ever been to the clerk's office, there's probably a record of it. I've been an assistant to the clerk for more than 6 years. As an assistant clerk, I am authorized to carry out the same duties and functions as the clerk. I have also been a backup bookkeeper for the past 12 years. Millions of dollars are received in by the clerk's office. And as bookkeeper, you have to know how to distribute that money, because a large part of the money goes to support the North Carolina budget. And also, I must know how each department functions. Laws and procedures that govern the clerk's office are established by the North Carolina General Assembly. The most important part of the clerk's office is you. You are the favorite part of my job, and I love helping people. Should you need to come into the clerk's office, I can promise you that you'll be met with a friendly face and get the help that you need and deserve. This election will bring change. I will strengthen and improve the clerk's office by encouraging more training and requiring professionalism always. I have the knowledge, experience, and integrity to be a great clerk, but most of all, I know that I have the compassion and the heart to serve you, the citizens of Burke County.
Thank you, Candidate Carpenter. Next up, Candidate Duckworth, 2-minute opening statement.
Good evening, folks. I'm Eric Duckworth, candidate for Burke County Clerk of Superior Court. It's great to be back here at Western Piedmont Community College. The criminal justice degree and law enforcement training that I received here is a huge part of the foundation that allows me to stand here before you tonight. My family's roots are deeply embedded in Burke County, extending back generations. I was born and raised here in the Salem community, where I was taught by my parents to serve God, family, and my fellow man. My wife of 32 years, Lamina Duckworth, was also born and raised here in Burke County in the George Hildebrand community, and we've raised our family here. We have one daughter, Erica Duckworth Moretz, and we're blessed to have a grandson and another one on the way. Over 3 decades ago, I began my law enforcement career with the Burke County Sheriff's Office, working as a deputy in the county jail. While there at Burke County Sheriff's Office, I also served as a patrol deputy and a detective. I also served as a Burke County Narcotics Task Force investigator, specializing in asset forfeiture. For the last 24 years, I've had the honor of serving the citizens of Burke County as a magistrate judge, working with our clerk's office, law enforcement, district attorney's office, and the Register of Deeds office. As a magistrate judge, I've heard the probable cause on over 50,000 criminal cases, issuing thousands of arrest warrants and criminal summons. I've served as a small claims court judge, presiding over a wide range of disputes such as landlord-tenant, summary ejectments, complaints for money owed, and return of property cases. As a magistrate, I've heard the probable cause from citizens needing a family member, a loved one, involuntarily committed for mental illness or drug abuse. I've also had the privilege of marrying several thousand couples along the way. I'm convinced it's time for new leadership and direction at the clerk's office. My knowledge, education, training, and experience has best prepared me.
Thank you, Candidate Duckworth. We will now move into our series of questions. If each candidate would like to open up their first question, our technology comes up on the screen for all of the audience members to see the question. The question will be, what experience do you have that best qualifies you to be clerk of court, and why are you running for this office? We will start this question with candidate Duckworth. You'll have 1 minute to respond to this question.
Well, my 3 decades of public service as a former law enforcement officer and a magistrate judge, hearing all these civil and criminal cases over the past 24 years as magistrate, definitely, I think, has given me an insight to the court system. There's many other things. I realize that the clerks are the record keepers, but I realize also that there's many other things that the Clerk of Superior Court's office could do to combat these drug problems and the issues that face us today. I would like to even start a telephone system that would call and remind people of a court date, which I would call a court date reminder, just like a doctor's office or a dentist's office would do, to cut down on the failure to appear rates in Burke County.
Thank you, Candidate Duckworth. Next up will be Candidate Carpenter. What experience do you have that best qualifies you to be clerk of court, and why are you running for this office?
Well, I'll back up just a little bit from when I started in 2006. Before that, my very first job was a school bus driver at the age of 17. And then I went on to work at a local manufacturing plant where I started out in the office, and within about 5 years became the plant superintendent, the plant manager. I was in charge of the day-to-day operations, keeping the work for the people, getting the orders in, getting the orders out the door. I had the lowest labor to sales percentage rate of any plant manager before me. And then I went to work for the clerk's office. Again, over 15 years experience at the clerk's office, working daily with the files, with the people, with each department. And also having that background as being a backup bookkeeper, knowing about each department and being able to help anyone that comes in. 6.5 years as an assistant clerk. The same duties.
Thank you, candidate Carpenter. We'll move on to our second question. If candidates would like to open their second envelope. This question will be, what are the biggest budget issues facing the Clerk of Court's office? And we will begin this round with candidate Carpenter. The floor is yours for 1 minute.
Okay, this is a tough issue. And I may not be answering this question correctly, but I'm going to just tell you what's on my mind. We are a state facility that's operated in a county building. Our courthouse needs work. We are expanding. We have more filings than we've ever had. We have more employees than we've ever had, and we just don't have the room. So I would like to work with the county commissioners to talk about how we can either A, improve our building, or B, build a new courthouse. I'm all for improvement. We just have to have more room, not just for the clerks, but for the public that need to come into our facility to do their daily business or come in for their court dates.
Thank you, candidate Carpenter. Candidate Duckworth, what are the biggest budget issues facing the Clerk of Court's office?
Well, I realize that the Clerk of Court's office does need some space. Of course, we have the downstairs at the Burke County Courthouse that has not been used in, I guess, about a year. So, of course, we could always do some renovation there. That wouldn't cost the taxpayers a whole lot of money to get that back in operation. A big issue for me would be restoring court services to eastern Burke County and reopening a magistrate's office on that end of the county to service those people's needs down there where they don't have to drive all the way to Morganton for service. Our two sheriff candidates was asked at the forum, do we need a new magistrate's office reopened back in eastern and Burke County? And both of those sheriff candidates agreed. They were former law enforcement officers when that office was actually in operation, and it was a public service.
Thank you, candidate Duckworth. And the third and final question, if you'd like to open that envelope.
I couldn't find it.
So the final question is, what is your opinion on the facility and space needs of the Clerk of Court's office and of the courthouse in general? We will begin this question with candidate Duckworth. 1 minute.
Well, I think we've answered a lot of those questions. It's come up, does Burke County need a new courthouse? And we may need a new courthouse down the road, but I don't see that we need a new courthouse today. I'm not sure that the taxpayers of Burke County, based on the economic situation that we have, can afford a new courthouse. Most definitely, the courthouse that we have could be remodeled. There's a lot of things we can do there. But no, I do not think that we need a new courthouse. There was several $1 million project just completed on that courthouse, I think about a year ago, where they put a new elevator system in, a new parking garage for the jail bus that has never been utilized by the county. So I think we could definitely get by with just some renovations to the courthouse. And probably the downstairs itself can give us the space we need.
Thank you, candidate Duckworth. Candidate Carpenter, what is your opinion on the facility and space needs of the Clerk of Court's office and of the courthouse in general?
The current building we're in now was built in, or we moved in 1976. I wasn't there. I was in school. Anyway, there are 4 courtrooms in the building. We need at least 5. We certainly could utilize the basement. Again, that would have to be approved by the county commissioners for it to allow us to do that. Also with the sheriff's office for the security of everyone that works there and everyone that comes into the facility. As clerks, our desks are side by side. When COVID came along, we struggled to be 6 feet apart from one another. So we definitely need more space, if that means to utilize the basement, if it means that we go behind the courthouse and build to include the new Sally Port that was just built so that it can continue to be used. I would just love the opportunity to explore every opportunity there.
Thank you, Candidate Carpenter. We will conclude this panel with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate, and we will begin this round with Candidate Carpenter, 2 minutes.
With over 15 years of on-the-job experience and more than 6 years as an assistant clerk, I have the knowledge to successfully lead the clerk's office as new technologies and processes are implemented by the Administrative Office of the Courts, and the heart to serve the citizens of Burke County as family and friends. I will always be available to listen to your concerns and will endeavor to provide you with the assistance you need. There will be times, however, when the answer you are given is not what you want to hear. But I will always tell you the truth, and when we part, it will be as friends. I'm asking you to give me the opportunity to serve you as the next Burke County Clerk of Superior Court by casting your vote for Crystal R. Carpenter in the Republican primary.
Thank you, Candidate Carpenter. And Candidate Duckworth, 2-minute closing statement.
Folks, it's been almost 50 years since we've had change at the clerk's office. It's time for a change. We need more than just a record keeper. I give you my word, if I'm elected, I will help stop these drug dealers and criminals from falling through the cracks of our court system. My opponents say this is not their job, but I disagree. Lives are being lost, families destroyed by the drug problems we now face in Burke County. I'll partner with law enforcement and the District Attorney's Office to seal the cracks. I will work to improve court services, creating a better customer service experience, improving relationships between the court system and the public, and I will reopen a magistrate's office in eastern Burke County. I will create a court date telephone reminder system to help keep citizens informed of their pending court dates. I will promote and hire based on what you know, not who you know. My door will always be open. I'm a phone call away, and if I can be of assistance, I will. For me, the citizens are Burke County. For me, the citizens will be my priority.
Thank you, Candidate Duckworth, and I'd like to thank both candidates for participating in our forum this evening. I invite the audience to join me in a And as we clear the tables, I invite our candidates for sheriff to please come forward, Candidate Richard Eppley and Candidate Banks Heinzman. Okay, it looks like our candidates are ready, so I invite you to come back together once again. We will start, as we have with the other offices, with a 2-minute opening statement from each candidate. We will begin with an opening statement from Candidate Eppley.
Hello, everyone. I appreciate you coming out in the chamber and Western Piedmont. I'm Richard Eppley, been in law enforcement for 40 years, a little over 40 years. Love it, love the job, love carrying the badge. I tell you, my experience has been over the state working private police for a while. But education started here at Western Piedmont. I got my 2-year degree, then Gardner Webb got my 4-year degree. But during my campaign, a lot of people was asking why I'm running for sheriff. You know, the fact of it is I got many reasons, but since I don't have a lot of time, I'm going to give you the main reason. That's the overdose deaths that's happening here. A lot of overdoses is happening in this county. It's one of the biggest in the state. And the most important job for a sheriff is to make sure his officers has the resources he needs to save lives. Burke County has one of the highest overdose rates in the state, contributing to deaths in our county. And the current leadership wants to blame the District Attorney's Office, County Commissioners. I won't do that. As your sheriff, I will create a narcotics task force to combine the resources of state, federal, and local agencies with the money and manpower needed to tackle the drug epidemic in our county. The sheriff's office is not even applying for grants, free equipment like the TruNarc that you can use to detect drugs and what kind of drugs they are. I work with the DA and the lawmakers to close revolving doors for these criminals. And we're also listening to our citizens on the concerns involving crimes and drugs. My opponent said in the news hurl that he wouldn't change anything. My opponent says that he's tough on drugs and crime and looking for a bright future. Well, folks, I don't see a bright future with the way things are going. There has to be change here. I'm running because of the lack of employees. This is caused not by by hiring people, but retention. Retention comes first. You got to keep these people that you got. You got to do exit interviews. You got to talk to them. You got to make them stay if you can. But trying to hire people when you got people leaving, and they're not leaving for money, they're leaving for other jobs, and they're leaving the leadership. Hiring, retention, my opponent would not even do an exit interview. From what some folks have told me, you got to do that.
Thank you, Candidate Eppley. We'll follow up with a 2-minute opening statement from candidate Heinzman.
My name is Banks Heinzman, and I started my Burke County law enforcement career at the Burke County Sheriff's Office back in 1989. I started at the jail. I worked in the jail for about a year and a half, and I moved to the patrol division. I worked in the patrol division for about a year and a half, and I was promoted to the detective division. I've served as a detective. I worked everything from break-ins, felony thefts, up to homicides and sexual assaults. I was put back on the road, and there I served as a sergeant and a lieutenant, where I supervised a group of deputies. After that, I was promoted to the chief deputy's position, which I've served for 2 sheriffs for the past 15 years. Under 2 sheriffs, I've been the chief deputy. I've been at the sheriff's office a total of 32 years. I've worked part-time here at Western Piedmont as a criminal justice instructor in BLET. I teach a few different things there. I'm also certified to teach various high-risk or high liability areas to our law enforcement officers. I've also supervised our SWAT team for the past 22 years. I think that my well-rounded career makes me the best candidate for sheriff. I've served you as a nonpartisan law enforcement officer for 32 years. I'm proud to be running as a conservative Republican, but when I'm elected, I will serve everybody, not just Republicans. I will be everybody's sheriff, and that's important. It's important that everybody trust anybody or trust a sheriff. That's the most important thing for me, is that you trust a sheriff and anybody that we send to your house to serve as a deputy or detention officer.
Thank you, Candidate Heinzman. We'll now move into our series of questions, and I remind the audience to please withhold your applause or comments until the very end. If the candidates would like to open their first envelope with the first question while we bring it up on the screen for the audience members. And the first question will be, what experience do you have that best qualifies you to be sheriff, and why are you running for this office? So this first question will go to candidate Heinzman for a 1-minute response.
My experience is that's all I've done my adult life, is work at the Burke County Sheriff's Office. Like I say, I started at the jail. I've worked every rank at that sheriff's office, from detention officer to chief deputy. And I think that makes me the most well-rounded candidate. That's all I've done is a Burke County Sheriff's Office. Why am I running for sheriff? Because I want to support our dedicated men and women at the sheriff's office who serve this county in a professional, dedicated way like I've never seen. We have a great bunch of men and women serving, and I want to ensure that they have the best equipment that they can have, the best resources that they can have, and make sure that we get them the best pay that we can pay them. And if I'm elected, I will advocate that we increase our deputies and detention officers' pay. That will help us for recruiting and retention. We are losing people to a few other agencies. Most people are going to the private sector. FedEx, we've lost them to FedEx. We've lost them to...
Thank you, Candidate Heinzman. Next up, Candidate Eppley, 1 minute. What experience do you have that best qualifies you to be sheriff, and why are you running for this office?
Well, I think the most qualification I have, I've been sheriff before in this county. I know this county very well. I've worked this county for a lot of years. I've worked as a law enforcement officer, a sheriff's deputy, a public safety officer, a probation parole officer. I love this county, and I love the people. I love being out here. My experience is working outside of this county. is sometimes it takes a fresh look. You know, when you got complacency in a sheriff's department where you see the same old thing all the time and nothing changes, and you don't see what can be better, what can be done better. I've worked Charlotte for a lot of years. I've worked Raleigh. I've worked Wilmington. I've worked Asheville. I've seen what other departments. I've worked for chief of police and big departments. I know several sheriffs I've worked with around the state. I have a great deal of experience in my education and being on the Training Standards Commission. I've worked with them for the last 6 years to be out here learning about what law enforcement needs and their training and equipment, for instance. We don't have enough of everything we need, like body cams and things like that. It's just...
Thank you, Candidate Eppley. We'll now move on to our second question. If the candidates would please open their second envelope. The second question will be, how will you work to ensure that all those employed by the Sheriff's Office are prepared to respond to situations involving mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and homelessness? Again, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to this question. We'll begin with Candidate Eppley.
Yeah, working with folks in situation of mental health has been an issue, but law enforcement has had, over the years, mental health training. We have things in our 24-hour training that we have every year dealing with a lot of health conditions had to deal with out here. But the homelessness you brought up earlier, I've talked about a program that I want to start where we identify all the homelessness. And that, like I said, in these situations, it kind of deals a lot with homelessness out here with the mental conditions that they have. And the reasons they're out here, or all the reasons that we could do to help them, is getting out here and learning who they are. We had a kid just killed himself here lately, homeless. You know, he just got buried at the church I went to and visited the other day. They had to do the funeral for this young man. And these guys, I met another one out here, a young guy from out of state. His name was Noah. He's out here in the street with a dog. And I said, why don't you get a job? I said, I got nobody to watch my dog. I mean, these folks out here that we need to identify out here as homelessness, people with mental illness. There was another kid had autism, had been missing for 3 years, was identified.
Thank you, Candidate Eppley. Next up will be Candidate Heinzman. How will you work to ensure that all those employed by the Sheriff's Office are prepared to respond to situations involving mental health conditions, substance use disorders, and homelessness?
You know, I served on the Crisis Intervention Board with, back then it was Burke County Behavioral Health. And they had a great crisis intervention program. That's a 40-hour course. And we've sent several officers through that program. They go to Broughton Hospital and learn to deal with patients with mental health issues. They go to the soup kitchen to deal with the homeless, to interact with them, and and to learn what kind of resources are out there for people with mental health issues and substance abuse issues. And part of that training was they wore a headphone that they were constantly hearing voices in their head, just so those officers would have an idea of what people with mental health issues were dealing with. And a lot of those officers, when we asked them to go to that training, like, I really don't want to go to that training. When they came back from that 40 hours of training, they're all said, I am so happy I got to go to that training to give me insight that I did not have before. So I think we just continue the in-service with our officers.
Thank you, Candidate Heinzman. And our final question, if you'd like to open your third envelope as we bring it up here on the screen.
Smaller fingers.
Our final question will be, what type of training would you implement to ensure that all those employed by the Sheriff's Office are prepared to respond to the needs and perspectives of the diverse population of Burke County? We will begin this round with Candidate Heinzman with a 1-minute response.
You know, every year the North Carolina Sheriff's Training Education Standards Commission, they have 24 hours of mandatory training that every deputy sheriff has to go to. And usually part of that training, there's usually 4 hours of cultural diversity, working with the youth, working with just the different communities that the sheriff's office would serve out in Burke County. And we've seen everything in that training, from dealing with the youth to dealing with people with mental health issues, to dealing with just a wide variety of the different things. The big thing is just finding that training and getting our officers to be able to go to that training. Right now, we're struggling with, of course, shortages, and I think once we're fully staffed, we'll be able to take advantage of training like that, not only our in-service, but find training at North Carolina Justice Academy. Western Piedmont has always been a great resource to provide training. Captain Warren is an awesome person to bring that training here to Western Piedmont. Yep.
And we'll follow up with candidate Eppley. What type of training would you implement to ensure that all those employed by the Sheriff's Office are prepared to respond to the needs and perspectives of the diverse population of Burke County?
Well, in Burke County, we have so many institutes here, and like the deaf school and whatnot, but also the fact that we have case farms and a lot of Hispanics and folks that don't speak English. We have to partner up and deal with some of these facilities around here, like it has different diverse populations of people trying to learn a little bit about their language and their cultures. I think we need to have more training, and maybe Western Piedmont Community College would be a great place to put on some programs to bring our law enforcement to learn more about the population that we have coming in. There's so many different varieties of different populations of people now. And the language barrier is one of the biggest things we have to deal with, but learning about their culture and how they act and what they do, especially with the deaf school. When I worked in public safety, you had people that couldn't speak, and you tried to learn something. We need to learn some of the deaf language and things like that. You need a little bit more understanding of how they operate and what they do and what their needs are. But I think we've got a lot of institutions around here that can help get us to where we need to be at the Sheriff's Department.
Thank you, candidate Eppley. We'll close this panel with 2-minute closing statements from each candidate, beginning with candidate Eppley.
Many of you know I've been a lifelong Republican and I stand for conservative values. You select the best person for sheriff is critical in Burke County, and the primary affects all of us. I spent 10 years of my life fighting the goals of the Republican Party. Think about this: the drug epidemic in Burke County impacts the rich, poor, and many diverse people across the county. Family members and others have known people that have suffered and died because of the drug crisis. Our citizens are demanding change. I'm the person that will bring change to Burke County. I'm not going to sit back and accept the way that the Burke County Sheriff's Department is operated. My administrative team will provide leadership and values to make the Sheriff's Office among the best in the state. Right now, we have designed programs and plans that will address the drug problems, homelessness, school safety, morale, employee hiring, retention, equipment needs, and higher education and training. My policies support open communication lines and transparency over the members of the Sheriff's Department and the citizens of Burke County. My opponent is sending out mailers encouraging people to switch their affiliation to a Democrat, unaffiliated, to vote for him. It shouldn't be about that. It shouldn't be about switching politics. It should be about who you are and what your character is, and if you vote in one party or another party. But we should stay like we are and support the law enforcement people that we have in this county, because they need your support. And it's not about switching politics. We need to stay on course there and realize it's not just about politics, it's about everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Eppley. And again, please hold your applause until the very end. 2-minute closing statement from candidate Heinzman.
If I'm elected sheriff, I promise, pledge to look at our sheriff's office with the swooped, what that stands for is where I'm going to look at our strengths, our weaknesses, the opportunities that we have possibly, and any threats that we may have. And I want to sit down with each of our employees and discuss what they think our strengths, our weaknesses, what opportunities we have moving forward, and what our threats may be. And I think it's important that I have that face-to-face interaction with our staff, because like I said before, we have a bunch of great men and women who serve this county professionally and selfishly. And I will work with our county commissioners to ensure that we get them better pay, to ensure that we get them the best equipment that they can have. Body cameras is something that we've asked for the past 6 or 7 years. We need body cameras. I do the internal affairs at the sheriff's office, and wherever there's video evidence, most of the complaints that we have against officers are either come in way underreported or overreported, or they didn't happen at all. Officers probably 90% of the time are exonerated. So it's important that we get this equipment for our officers. My pledge to you is to serve as a nonpartisan sheriff if I'm elected. I will serve everybody, serve your family. I will protect your family as if they were my own. I pledge to support your freedoms, your faith, your freedom, your family, and your finances. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Heinzman, and I want to thank both candidates for participating in the forum this evening, and I invite the audience to join me in a round of applause.
Thank you, Susan. I say we give Susan a round of applause. On behalf of the Chamber and the business community, I want to thank all the candidates who participated this evening. Thank you again to Dr. Welch and your crew here at Western Piedmont Community College for hosting us. Tim Pittman, can't thank you enough for all your support and help. Jenna and Kelly, thank you for being our timekeepers tonight and keeping us in order, and we're out of here before midnight. Again, thank you to Compass Cable, who will be airing this. Again, check it out on the Chamber's website, YouTube channel. And on the back of your program, a lot of people were questioning on the back of your program, that is a sample of what your ballot will look like when you go to the polls. We only invited from North Carolina elections down to local elections, but that is your entire ballot so that you can be prepared when you go to vote. Please, everyone, I encourage you to go vote and vote with an education. Early voting starts this Thursday, April 28th, and primary date is May 17th. So please make sure that you make time to go vote between those times. So thank you all for your interest in Burke County, and we appreciate you being here, your time and your energy and your effort, and thank you for abiding by the rules most of the time. And I wish you all a wonderful evening.